You are listening to Christian Audio's production of Movies Are Prayers, How Films Voice Our Deepest Longings by Josh Larsen. This book is read by Mike Chamberlain. This audio recording was produced in 2017 by Christian Audio, which owns the copyright. No portion of this recording may be reproduced for any reason without prior written consent from Christian Audio. Originally published by InterVarsity Press as Movies Are Prayers by Josh Larsen. Copyright 2017 by Joshua P. Larsen. Recorded and distributed by permission of InterVarsity Press. P.O. Box 1400, Downers Grove, Illinois, 60515, USA. www.ivpress.com. All rights reserved. Please visit christianaudio.com, facebook.com/christianaudio, or twitter.com/christianaudio to offer your impressions of this work and to explore additional titles. Forward. Matt Zoller Seitz. Whenever I speak to groups about movies or criticism, I am invariably asked which critics I think people should be reading. I suggest a few names, often people who write for major publications or online journals of note. But then I tell them that if they're interested in form as well as content, and in the relationship between the two, that is, if they're looking for actual criticism as opposed to reviews, but written in language that can be understood by somebody who didn't go to film school, then they should be reading critics who write for a religious or spiritual audience. I suggest this not because I am particularly religious myself, though I do believe there's more to life than what we can scientifically quantify, but because there's a disconnect between what marketers have told Christian audiences are Christian films, a narrow slice of mostly bland, ineptly made, and insufferably preachy bits of product, and the ones recognized by critics such as Josh Larsen, whose extraordinary book you are about to listen to. And a critic such as Larsen writes much more perceptively about what a film actually is, what it contains, what it says, and how it says it, than all but a handful of critics who don't carry the difficult responsibilities that spiritually minded critics shoulder every day of the week. The committed filmgoer who is also a committed Christian occupies a uniquely precarious position within film culture. Much arts criticism is at best coolly secular or indifferent to faith, and at worst actively hostile to most forms of organized religion, as well as to the notion that the experience of the uncanny or inexplicable or intuitive or mysterious might be applicable to daily life, as well as to fictions that involve wizards, witches, Jedi, demons, and prophets. A critic such as Larsen also encounters resistance, and sometimes hostility, from that sector of the audience that is mainly interested in knowing what sorts of films won't offend their faith or their sense of propriety, or force them to explain things to their children that they would rather not have to discuss. To this kind of viewer, who thinks of criticism mainly as a consumer guide, criticism of the kind that Larsen practices so well can only provoke discomfort, or the sort of introspection that leads to discomfort. And who wants to feel uncomfortable? Caught between the proverbial rock and a hard place, Larsen slips free and embarks on his own journey. Like a pilgrim in a novel or poem from long ago, Larsen doesn't just head directly into the nearest house of worship in the town where he was born and has never left, pick up a prescribed text, and start reciting the old tried-and-true words, chapter and verse. He looks up at the sky and off toward the trees, not just down at the text. He seeks out life experiences he could never imagine on his own and scrutinizes them with an open mind and an attentive ear. He roams. He's a traveler, a seeker. He is curious and wise, but never self-regarding. He sees faith and finds God in places you might not necessarily expect, and locates lessons, more often questions, in quite a few films that you wouldn't immediately describe as being concerned with such things. And Larsen never makes the mistake of assuming that because a film contains subject matter that some might consider objectionable, it cannot possibly be of interest to a viewer who cares about spiritual matters. The stories of sinners often have as much to tell us about the human condition as the stories of
Sample complete. Ready to continue?